Okay, so in the last class we were talking about electromagnets, and there we explained that what are the different uses of an electromagnet and what are the good and bad sides, means that what are the limitations and possibilities, things like that. Anyway, so there we explained that electromagnets have only advantages up to a certain limit, but if we want to have very high magnetic field, then we cannot use electromagnets. We have to have something else. Okay, so okay, so by the way, am I audible? Can you hear my voice? Hello?
Yes,
Yes,
sir,
sir.
you are audible.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so today I will talk about the possible solution for this problem. So we will discuss about superconducting magnets. Okay, has anyone heard about this superconducting magnet? Anyone?
Yes, sir.
Okay, who is it?
Sambit, sir. In
Sambit.
last lecture, you said about maglev.
Yes, I said about maglev. Yeah. So actually, I think 1 or 2 days back, I saw a news report that China is going to start again maglev systems in their country. Did anyone come across this? So, I mean, they already have high-speed trains, but still they are going to launch this maglev system. So it will reach a speed like 630 kilometers per hour maximum speed. Okay. Anyway, so it means that this technology is still widely kind of like popular. Okay, because people are still using it now. Okay. So now, so firstly, before getting into the superconducting magnet, so I'll first talk about superconductor. Okay, I guess you all are familiar with this briefly, right? You have heard this term at some point, right? Yes
Yes.
or not? Okay, I think some of you might not have heard. Anyway, okay. So a superconductor is basically a conducting material, okay, which has, anyone, can you say something about superconductor?
Conductivity is in infinitive and resistivity tends to 0.
Okay, conductivity is not infinity. It's high
No,
conductivity.
no, sir.
Okay, okay. I mean, if is, of course, if resistivity goes to 0, then only conductivity is
Resistivity.
infinity. Yeah, but
Yes,
it is
yes.
never 0, right?
No,
So
sir.
it cannot be infinity. Okay, so basically rho it goes to 0. Okay, but this property is also observed in something called as in a perfect conductor. Okay, so when I say rho equals 0, it means that any current that flows through the material does not experience any resistance. Okay, is it clear? Understood? But this property can also be observed in a perfect conductor. In addition to this, there is one more property that is required to observe superconductivity. So this is called as perfect
Diamagnetism.
diamagnetism. Okay. Okay. So these two properties combined together, then only we can say the material is a superconductor. So if in your interview somebody asks that if rho is 0, is it a superconductor? Then what will be your answer?
No, sir.
So you also need something in addition. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So perfect diamagnetism, that means I explained that susceptibility will be -1. Okay, in SI of course. In CGS it will be -1 by 4 pi probably. Okay, so M is -H in a way. Okay. Now this property is only observed in a material when the temperature is cooled below a certain critical temperature. Okay. Okay. So if the temperature is above critical temperature, the material will behave like a normal conductor, or it could be something else also, which is other than superconductor. But if the temperature is cooled below a certain critical temperature of some value which is specific to the material, then only this material will be superconducting. Okay, so we can combine all these things by saying that if the superconductor is a type of a material, when we cool it below a certain critical temperature, it shows almost zero resistivity and perfect diamagnetism. Okay. Okay. Any question on this? Okay. So what is critical temperature? Anyone? Or why do we call it critical?
Sir, because the transition between the states, that is below certain temperature it becomes superconducting states, or above that temperature it becomes normal state.
Okay, but still, why do we call it a critical temperature?
Sir, the resistivity suddenly drops to 0 at that point.
That is not the reason. Okay, we take critical temperature because we have a phase transition at this temperature. Okay, so if you remember, when you have a ferro to para transition, okay, then we have a TC, that is Curie temperature, right? So around the temperature, the system goes from one phase to other phase, right? And here also, around this temperature, this is also critical point. So system goes from one phase to other phase. So some thermodynamic parameters, they also change their values. So that is why we have a critical point. And from there, we call this temperature as critical temperature. Okay? Right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, right. Okay. So now the question comes, why suddenly we are using these superconducting materials to use magnets, or why superconducting magnets suddenly are interesting? Anyone?
It can produce a very high magnetic field
Why?
because it can sustain a large current.
Yes, right. Very good. Okay. So because a large amount of current can pass through it. So as we said in last class, that the main problem with electromagnet is that if we pass a high value of current, then it will produce quite a lot of heating. So that might melt the wires. Okay. And the main reason is that I square R, so R is quite large there. Okay. But in the case of a superconductor, since resistivity is close to 0, so it can pass a very large amount of current without facing any resistance. And higher the value of current, higher will be the value of magnetic field. Okay, right? So higher the current, higher the magnetic field. Okay, so that is why we use these superconducting materials to make the magnets. Okay, okay. So now when we are talking about superconducting materials, so there are three parameters which we have to take care of. Okay, so one is TC, okay, which we already named as critical temperature. Okay, then the second one is HC. What is it called? Critical field. And the third one is IC, which is called as critical current. Okay. Now, in order to have a superconducting state that is stable, we have to maintain these following conditions. T has to be less than TC. Okay, H has to be less than HC and I has to be less than IC. Okay. Now, any question on these two parameters, HC and IC? So TC we already explained. What is HC? So
Critical
HC,
current.
bolo?
Critical current that can pass through.
No,
Maximum
HC
current
is
that
not
can pass
current.
through.
HC is field.
I see, sir.
Okay, IC, yes, IC is the current. Yes, yes, yes. So HC is the field, which means that even in a superconductor, the superconducting state will survive if we apply an external magnetic field, or basically in the presence of an external magnetic field, the superconducting state will be survived up to a certain critical value. Okay, which means that if we want the superconductor to behave as a superconductor, the field value should be lower than this. Similarly, when you are passing a current through it, the current should not be more than the critical current. Okay, so now these are specific to materials. Okay. Okay, so any questions so far on this? Anyone? Okay, not okay. Now, before getting into this magnet, we need to talk little bit about the basically effect of magnetic field on superconducting state. Okay. Okay. So, as you know that a superconductor is diamagnetic, that I said. Okay. So now, so basically there are two types of superconductors. One is type 1 and type 2. Anyway, so I'm mostly talking about type 1 here. Oh, no, let's say, okay. So let's say, okay, so there is type 1 and type 2. Okay, so basically type 1 has one critical field HC and type 2 has two critical fields HC1 and HC2. Anyway, okay, so okay, so let me talk about first this type 1. So basically these superconducting materials can be characterized into these two types based on their magnetic behavior. Okay, right. So in type 1, what happens is that if applied magnetic field is lower than critical field, okay, then it will show perfect diamagnetism. Okay, or we call it a Meissner state. Okay, and if the applied field is higher than Hc, then it will not be a superconductor. It will behave like a normal metal or material, let's say. Okay, right. So that is true for type 1. Now for type 2, what happens is that there are two critical fields. One is HC1 and other is HC2. So this is called as lower critical field and the second one is called as higher critical field. Okay. So what happens here, if H is less than HC1, then it will be diamagnetic, or we call it a Meissner state. Okay. If the field is in between HC1 and HC2, then it is called as a mixed state or vortex state. Okay, and if the field is higher than HC2, then it will not be superconducting. Okay, so it will be a normal phase. Okay, okay. So now what happens here? So let's say when we are talking about type 1 superconductor, if the field is small, okay, then it will completely repel. Okay, so whatever external magnetic field that we are applying, so let's say this is a piece of superconductor. Okay, and if I am applying a magnetic field like this, okay, then what happens is that these flux lines will not enter, so it will pass by. Okay, so the superconductor will completely repel this. Okay, But if the field is higher than this critical field, then these flux lines will start penetrating into the material and the superconducting state will be completely gone away. Okay. But in the case of this type 2 superconducting materials, what happens is that below Hc1, it will completely eject or repel the magnetic flux. But when the field is in between these two values, Hc1 and Hc2, what happens is that as soon as H becomes higher than Hc1, then slowly the magnetic flux, or let's say field, okay, they will start entering okay, so they will start entering the superconductor. Now, how will they enter? They will enter in the form of quantized vortices. Okay. Okay, so when I say quantized vortices, that means it will be like a single quantum of flux which has a particular magnetic field. I think some 2.7 times 10 to the minus 15 Weber per meter square, something like that. Okay, so that much amount of magnetic field will be contained in one of these flux, and they will slowly start entering into the material. Okay, so let's say if the field is little higher than Hc1, then one unit will enter. Then second one will enter, and basically depending on what is the value of magnetic field, a large number of these vortices will enter. Now what it looks like is that, let's say you have a superconducting material like this, okay, and you have these small quantized vortices that will be present inside the material. Okay, now if I want to draw these things a little bit more clearly, so let's say this is my superconductor, okay, and I have my vortices, they are kind of entered into the material, okay, like this. Okay, and higher the magnetic field, higher will be the numbers of these vortices. Okay, now the code of these these vortices, so as I said, these vortices are like single quantum of magnetic field. So this part which is here basically inside it, so this is basically a normal phase, which means that, let's say this is a superconductor, let's say niobium or lead. Okay, now there are some vortices which are present because the applied magnetic field is high. Okay, now if I look at this material picture here, okay, then what I'll see is that this white part is superconducting phase. Okay, where it is Meissner phase means that it is perfectly diamagnet, but these small circular parts, they are in normal phase, which means that whatever magnetic field that I'm applying, it will smoothly pass through it. Okay, is this part clear what I'm saying? Anyone?
Sir, kindly repeat the explanation.
Okay, very good. Okay. Okay, so let's say this is a superconductor. Okay, and I am keeping it in the presence of a magnetic field. Okay, right? So now if the magnetic field, so this is a type 2 superconductor, okay, which means that it has two critical fields, that is Hc1 and Hc2. And as I said, if the field is in between these two values, that is in between Hc1 and Hc2, then it will stay in something called as a mixed state. Okay, so let's say if the field is less than Hc1, then this material is completely diamagnetic, which means that whatever is the applied magnetic field, it is completely repelling it, right? Okay, now if the field is higher than Hc1, so as soon as I increase the field little bit more than the value of Hc1, then what will happen is that this external magnetic field will start getting into the material in the form of something called as vortices. So these vortices contain a quantum unit of magnetic flux. Okay.
Sir, which points are called vortices?
These circular parts which I have drawn here.
Okay, sir.
Okay, so they are part of this material itself. Okay, but this part is not superconducting anymore. So it will behave as a normal material. So the phase is normal phase now. Okay, which means that whatever value of magnetic field is applied on this part, it will pass through it. Okay, but this other white part, which is basically the majority of this superconducting phase, it will be diamagnetic. Is it clear? Not clear?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Okay. So now higher the magnetic field, more will be these numbers of these vortices. Okay. Now in the equilibrium configuration, these vortices, they order in some symmetric configuration. So typically it is a hexagonal order that they follow. Okay. So if one wants to do some sort of an STM imaging, or there are some imaging techniques, then they will see that these vortices are forming a hexagonal lattice. Okay, right? But this also depends from one material to other. So it can be square, it can be triangular, but typically it is hexagonal. Okay. So now where we are now slightly greater than Hc1. Okay. And we are increasing this field. So as soon as we will approach Hc2, the number of vortices that will be in this material will be higher and higher, which means that the amount of normal phase in this volume fraction will be higher than the total volume of superconducting phase. Okay. So very close to Hc2, these flux lines will be so much in numbers that the superconducting state will be suppressed, and as soon as we will go above Hc2, okay, there will be no more superconducting phase. So this material will be completely normal phase, okay, or non-superconducting. Okay. Now remember, we are not changing anything. So the temperature we are keeping fixed at a temperature below critical temperature. Okay. Okay, any question on this? Hello?
No, sir. No, sir.
Is it clear what I wanted to say?
Sir, when is greater than AC2?
Yes.
Sir, what happens, sir?
So
No
superconductivity basically.
Sir, then no lines of force is passing through the material.
So the entire material is normal material. So we don't. So there is no specific individual normal course are visible or required.
Okay, sir.
So basically what is happening? Let's say I have one such flux lines. Okay, I have one such flux lines, right? Okay, so as we are close to Hc2, basically these lines will be so many numbers that they will touch each other, and effectively this entire part will be normal phase. Okay.
Okay, sir, I understand. When H greater than Hc1, then half part will be
Not half
considered.
part. Just when H is greater than Hc1, one by one they will start coming in.
Okay, sir.
Okay.
Okay, sir.
Right. So as the field value is higher, the more the vortices will be created in the material. Okay, I had a cartoon or some animation which I have to find out, but I can show you later. Okay, that how these things are basically like coming in, how vortices are basically created in the material. Okay. Okay. So now there is a lot of physics and research people have done on these things. Okay. So like what are the behavior of these vortices and how basically what is the correlation, like the statistics or statistical mechanics of their behavior. Okay. So basically between HC1 and HC2, there are lots of phases that are observed, and in last, actually, let's say even still now, like there has been intense interest on what happens between these field regions in a superconductor. So people have seen different phases, like vortex solid, vortex liquid, vortex glass phase. Okay, so basically the superconductor itself within this magnetic field region, so different kind of behavior. So how people find it out? People find it out through the, let's say, correlation behavior. Okay, so let's say when we have a solid material, okay, the two body correlation function and the 3 body correlation function will have a certain kind of divergence, or let's say behavior, which is different from, let's say, if it is a liquid phase, or let's say if it's a glassy phase. Okay, so from there, basically people have seen that in different material, different kind of like this vortex alignment, or let's say these vortices align themselves to form different kind of like superconducting phases within this field region. Okay, but that is completely physics part. Okay, but here from the magnetic point of view, what we will understand is that below HC1 it is completely diamagnetic. As soon as we are hitting above HC1, then slowly these magnetic flux lines will start coming in, and some amount of normal material will be or some normal phase is created in the superconducting volume, and slowly if we are increasing the field, the normal volume fraction will be increased, which means that the superconducting volume will be reduced. Okay, and as soon as we are going above HC2, the superconducting volume will be completely gone and the material will be completely normal phase. Okay, so any question on this?
No, sir.
No, everyone is clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay, ठीक है, good. Okay, so now we'll see what is, let's say, the typical use of a superconducting magnets. So typical use in, let's say, MRI machine. Okay, NMR spectrometer. Okay, then particle accelerator, etc. Okay, now one of the very important thing that we have not talked about is that we need a cooling arrangement to operate superconductors. Now this cooling is not similar to the electromagnetic cooling that I explained in last class. Okay, so here the cooling means that, as I said, that a superconductor, a material becomes superconductor when the temperature is below a certain critical temperature, or TC, which means that if we want to observe the superconducting phase, or let's say if we want to run a superconducting magnet, then the material has to be kept at a temperature which is lower than this temperature. Okay, now typically this temperature is lower than room temperature. Okay, so the most common superconducting materials, they have a critical temperature which is typically, let's say, of the order of 10 Kelvin, 20 Kelvin, or let's say 30 Kelvin. Okay, which means that the material has to be kept at this temperature during the entire period of operation. How will you do it? Anyone?
Sir, by liquid
Liquid
nitrogen.
helium.
Yes. So we need some liquid to cool the material. Now typically here we need liquid helium, which can go up to, let's say, 4 Kelvin. Then there is liquid nitrogen also, which we can use, but here the temperature, lowest temperature we will get is of the order of, let's say, I think 80 Kelvin. So it's typically 77 Kelvin. That is the boiling point. So 80 Kelvin roughly we say. Okay, but the magnet, there are some superconductors which have a critical temperature that is higher than 80 Kelvin, like in 100 Kelvin, 110 Kelvin or 20 Kelvin, but they are not commonly used for superconductor making. So typically the material which are used for superconductors, they have a critical temperature which is lower than that. So we need liquid helium, okay, mostly to run them. Okay, okay. Now the materials which are used for this magnet. So the common magnet superconducting materials that are used for this one is niobium titanium. So it has a TC of the order of 10 Kelvin and the critical field of the order of 15 Tesla. Okay, which means that we can safely go up to a field of this value. Okay, then there is niobium 3SN. So this has a TC of the order of 18 Kelvin and the critical temperature, critical field here runs between the range of 25 to 30 Tesla. Okay. Okay. So as you can see that these are pretty high field. So typically we can run very high value of magnetic field, or we can get very high value of magnetic field using these materials. Okay. Okay. So as we explained already, so there are few points which we need to keep in mind, that we need a cryogenic liquid to cool the material, or let's say for the operation of the magnet. Then the maximum field is limited by this value, which is of course connected to the critical current of the material. So that is also another point to consider. Okay, right. Okay, so any question so far?
No, sir.
No. Okay. So now we will go to the method of operation. Okay. So here is a circuit, simple circuit basically, of an superconducting magnet. Okay, so we have a current source here that passes a current I, okay, through this path, okay, and then here this current passes through two branches, this and then this. So this is a resistor R, and this one we call it as the superconducting coil, okay, and this current basically comes back through this path. Okay, so this one is called as a persistent switch. Okay, and this entire red dotted part is kept within a cryostat. So what is a cryostat? A cryostat is the part where we have this cryogenic liquid, which means that liquid helium or liquid nitrogen. So this part is always kept into that so that a temperature lower than critical temperature is maintained. Okay, any question? No?
Sir,
Yes.
is there any difference between a normal switch or persistent switch?
Yes, there is. Okay, so we'll explain it.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, so the name persistent, it comes from because this mode of operation is called as persistent mode of operation. Okay, so let us first look at how does this circuit work. So this is a very basic or simple circuit or very simple way of explaining the thing. Okay, so what we do is that when we first want to start the magnet or switch on the magnet, then what we will do is that we will switch on this. So okay, so let us first switch on the heater. Okay, so as you can see, this heater is kept close to this resistor R. Okay, now this R, this coil, all are made of superconducting materials. Okay, right. Now, why do I need this heater? The reason I need this heater because this is a local heater which is used to increase the temperature of this resistor, which means that it can increase the temperature above or below critical temperature. Okay, so if I want to start the magnet, what I'll first do is that I'll switch on the heater first. Okay, and then this will make sure that the resistor is at a temperature which is higher than critical temperature. So T above Tc. Okay. Now I will switch on the current source. Okay. To a desired value, or let's say small value, I'll just switch it on. So this current will start passing through this arrow and it will enter into the superconducting coil. Okay. Now remember that at this point, current will not go through this resistor R. Why? Anyone?
Yes, sir, because the resistance of the superconducting coil is less.
Yes. So this is a low resistance path. So current will not go through this path. Okay. So current will only go through the coil. Okay. Now I will increase the value of current slowly so that I reach the desired value of magnetic field which I want. Okay. So because I have a calibration chart already that for what value of magnetic field, what value of current is required. Let's say H versus I graph I have. So depending on that, I'll slowly increase the current to that particular value so that the field here reaches that value, or let's say that particular value of current passes through the superconducting coil. Okay. Now, once it reaches that particular value of current, then what I'll do is that I'll slowly switch off the heater. Okay. Which means that this resistor's temperature will be reduced and it will come back to the temperature of the liquid bath, which is lower than the critical temperature. Okay. So now in such circumstances, what will happen is that the current which is flowing through the superconducting coil, now it will start going through this path also. It will pass through the resistor. Okay. Right. Okay. At this point, what I will do is that I will slowly switch off the current source. Okay. Now, if you look at here this red dotted part is at cryogenic temperature and this is superconducting. Okay, which means that the current which has been passed through the coil earlier, that will keep on traveling through this closed loop. Okay, and no additional current will be required to supply from outside. Okay, so which means that once I reach the desired magnetic field, I do not need to supply any additional current to run the magnet. Okay, so this is what we call it as a persistent mode of operation. Okay, so is this part clear? Anyone?
Sir, can you please repeat this process?
Okay. So first, before I want to switch on the, let's say I have the magnet, I want to switch on the magnet for my operation. Okay. So what I will do is that I will first switch on the small heater, and this means that this resistor will be at a temperature which is higher than the critical temperature. So it will behave as a normal metal. Okay, normal material. Okay. Now I will switch on the current source, and small current will start passing from here, and then it will go through this path, and then it will pass through the superconducting coil. Now here remember that at this point it will not enter the resistor because this resistance of this path is higher. Okay, right? Okay, let me use the point, I think. Give me 1 second. Just give me 1 second. Okay. So can you see the pointer on the screen? Anyone?
No, sir.
You
No,
don't see
sir.
the red pointer?
No, sir.
No?
No, sir.
No, not. Okay, sorry. Okay, so then I think I have to use this one. Okay, so okay, so let me okay, so let me use the arrow, I think. Okay, so you see, so what I first do is that, so this is my heater, right? Okay, so I'll first switch on the heater. So this resistor will be in the normal state, this resistor will be in the normal state. Okay, and I'll keep it switched on, and then what I'll do is that I'll switch on the current source. So current will start passing through this path and it will enter this superconducting coil. Okay, right? And I'll slowly keep on increasing the current until I reach the desired magnetic field. Now remember, at this point, this is the only active path that is operational. Okay, so nothing is going through the resistor here. Okay, right? Or very small part maybe. Okay, now once I reach the desired value of current, which means that this coil can produce enough magnetic field from there, what I'll do is that I'll slowly switch off the heater and this resistor will come back to the superconducting state. Okay, which means that this path will have now a low resistance compared to this path. Okay, so remember this part of the coil is outside the cryostat. So this is not superconducting never any time. Okay, outside the dotted window. So now whatever current I have started here, that will not now start flowing through this path. Okay, so this closed loop, it will basically start flowing. Okay, huh? Now at this point what I will do is that I'll switch off this current source, okay, to 0. But whatever current I have passed earlier, that will keep circulating in this loop. Okay, so that is what is called as persistent mode of operation. So whatever value of field I have set here, it will be stayed, like it will remain here without even applying any external energy or without having any external power source. Okay, is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay, chalo. Very good. Okay. Okay, good. So basically, the way we are switching on or off is by basically using this resistive switch. Okay, or that's what we call it, the persistent switch, because of the persistent mode of operation. Okay, right. So once it is energized, this current will start flowing here, and we hope that it will stay like that forever, as long as we are not disturbing it, right? But there will always be some amount of decay, and over a large amount of time, a period of time, this field will basically it will reduce by some amount, but it is not much. Okay. Okay. So now, so shall I write down this thing, the process? Okay. So steps. Okay. One is switch on heater. Switch on current source. Increase the current slowly to reach desired magnetic field. Now switch off heater. Okay, which means that persistent mode on. Okay, and then switch off the current source slowly. Okay, so here now the current will flow in the loop indefinitely. Okay, right. Okay, but there will be some amount of decay, as I said. Okay, that will be there. So it is because you have some small resistance and some inductance of the coil. So typically this field, it will, let's say if H0 is the maximum field, then it will decay following this equation, R by L divided by T, SI times T. Okay, so if your value of R is small, then the decay will be very small, of course. Okay. Okay, so once we have reached a certain value of magnetic field, then this basically we don't need to apply any other external energy to run the magnet. Only we need is to keep the magnetic basically liquid there, and or keep the material in the superconducting state. Okay, so but that is not enough. Okay, so let's say what we need is that, let's say we need to change the magnetic field. So then what we will do? Anyone? If we want to change the magnetic field, what will we do?
Repeat the process.
Yes, we have to repeat the process. So then what we have to do is that we have to break this loop, which means that we have to switch on the heater. Okay, and then this resistor, we have to bring it back to the normal state, which means that current will start flowing into through this current source, and slowly we have to adjust the current again to the desired field, and then we have to repeat the process which we explained earlier. Once we reach that particular current, then we have to switch off the heater, and then this persistent mode will be on with that particular value of magnetic field. Okay. So what we see here is that now when we are heating this resistor, or let's say when we are operating this persistent switch, then it will cause maximum boiling of the liquid. Let's say liquid helium we are using. So then whenever we are using this heater, maximum boil up of liquid helium will occur, which means that if we want to change the magnetic field many times, it will cost us quite a lot of liquid helium. Okay. Is it clear? Anyone? Is this part clear what I said?
Yes, sir.
See, because when you are heating
Repeat it.
so when we are heating it, what we are doing is that we are creating a local heating. How are we doing it? We are basically boiling up the helium that is surrounding it, so it is vaporizing, right? So from liquid state, it is going to gas state. Now, once it is going to gas state, it will not come back to the liquid phase, right?
Yes.
So
sir.
every time we are heating this thing, we are creating some amount of boil up of liquid helium. Okay, that means the total amount of liquid helium which we have in the dewar or in the container, that will be reduced over a period of time. So we have to fill it up again if we change the magnetic field too many times. But if we want to keep the magnetic field fixed for a long time, then we don't have to do this thing. Okay, so same amount of liquid can be used for a longer amount of run. Okay. Okay. Okay, good. Okay, so now the coil windings, how the coil is made. Okay, so typically this superconducting coil is not made of entirely superconductor. Okay, so this coil is made of tiny filaments which are, let's say, diameter of 20 micrometer or so. Okay, of superconductor in a copper matrix. Okay, why copper is required? So copper is required to add mechanical stability and to add row resistance path for large currents in case T goes above critical temperature or I goes above IC and superconductivity is lost. Okay. Okay. So is this part clear? No? Not clear? Okay. So what you do is that you think about it. We'll explain it in the next class. Okay. Okay. Any other question? Any comments? Anyone?
No, sir.
No, sir. Okay, then we are stopping this, finishing it today here. Okay. So before that, I'll stop the recording. Okay.